So in my interaction with baristas, there are a couple of things that really make them proud. It's not just the pride that you have in doing something that you really passionate about, is if other people are able to see it the way that you see it. I guess what we're trying to do is to engage in that thought process of intention. My name is Anita Tam. I'm the owner of Slow Pour Supply. So I started practicing music at a very young age. Went to the academy when I was 13. I was studying music. Most of my time was dedicated to music. For a very long period of time, I thought that was the only thing that I could do. I didn't realize that I could have other skill sets. I didn't realize that I could be doing other things until I found coffee. Slow Pour Supply is a coffee tools company based in Magnolia, Texas. I started Slow Pour Supply in 2018, but that started with this very small idea to just simply get the best tools that I could find in the market for that particular moment. We supply small tools like milk pitchers, hand grinders, all sort of tools that helps baristas and home brewers, or coffee enthusiasts, to brew better coffee at home. I guess for milk pitchers, it's always seen as something that is a back burner item. And the milk pitcher is kind of the medium for baristas to leave their mark on the coffee, using latte art in particular. I felt that there are better ways for us to emphasize that and to provide tools to baristas who are interested in leaving a personal touch on a latte cup. And that is also enabling that bridge to happen from the specialty coffee side to the consumer side. Yeah, we use these words like customers, products. It puts a commercial value to it, right? The outcome of what the barista has produced is not just a product. To the barista, latte art is a realization of their own personal characteristics or preferences, or this is something that I can make happen and visualize in an art form. And through that process, we are there. Like the picture is there. When they pick up the picture, we want them to feel confident that this is the tool that they exactly know that they can trust that this is going to happen if all the other factors are right. That's why latte art has value. I can't stress it enough, because without the consumer, our industry can't survive. So we have to give the passion, like we have to translate this passion into something the consumer can enjoy, and it puts a smile on their face. So we have to involve the consumer in this discussion, and I believe the best way or the easiest way is to visualize it.
Hello. Welcome to our panel on the Coffee Retail Summit. I am Maya Ives Crowley. My pronouns are she, her, and I am here to introduce you today to two amazing people, Jenny Bonchak and Sam Magtanon. So a little bit about both of these people. Sam is one of the co-owners and co-founders of Mostra Coffee. They are a woman, veteran, and immigrant-owned coffee company and micro roaster. They are Roast Magazine's 2020 Micro Roaster of the Year, and they've also collaborated in developing over 1,000 different coffee beers with over 100 different breweries. And Jenny is the founder, owner, and operator of Slingshot Coffee, a renowned professional, multiple Brewers Cup champion, and she's received awards across multiple industries for entrepreneurship and innovation as well. And she also has a really interesting origin story, which I'm sure she'll tell us more about, but she sold her Subaru to start Slingshot at the very beginning. So both of these people have worked kind of from the ground up. And I'm going to open the floor to Jenny now.
Hi, Maya and Sam. I'm so glad to be doing this with you. And hi, everybody out there. Thanks for joining the Coffee Retail Summit. And thanks to the SCA for always putting on such great events, this one included. Like Maya said, thank you for that kind introduction. I'm Jenny Bonchak. I'm the founder and CEO of Slingshot Coffee Company here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I started Slingshot in 2012 by selling my Subaru Outback for $5,000 and really wanted to do that to take the experience I had as a specialty coffee professional and the vision I had to create a cold coffee company that was really unmatched and really was a company that would really take the vision and product kind of forward nature to really bring a coffee, especially coffee shop, to life onto grocery store shelves so that someone could really be able to enjoy a specialty coffee beverage wherever you happen to be. Our company is certainly founded and based off of principles that we find really important to not only running a business, but to also making sure that we are an important piece of the coffee supply chain that really does support everyone who has come before us in order for us to be able to do what we do. Like Maya said, yes, I am a national award-winning barista multiple times in Brewers Cup, which is such a huge honor. And in addition to that, I have also been a 2018-2019 fellow in the Coca-Cola Founders Forum. I was the 2016 Entrepreneur of the Year for Southern Living, and a few other things that are under my belt as well. The most recent endeavor that I've embarked on is our new sister brand called Needs and Wants, which is a sparkling superfruit tea that has a 100% women-led supply chain and is really meant to be a beverage for you that can support daily immunity, that can support stress relief, and can support digestive health. Poor Maya might be frozen.
I know, it might have come out.
Yeah, I think maybe if Maya is frozen and she can't hear, Sam, why don't I just kick it over to you?
Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everybody. Hi, Maya. Hopefully you are unfrozen soon. Thanks to the Coffee Retail Summit, Specialty Coffee Association, for giving us this opportunity. It's an absolute pleasure to be sharing this platform with Jenny. She's amazing, and I think you're going to enjoy learning more about her story. My name is Sam Magtanon. I'm one of the co-founders and co-owners of Mostra Coffee. We're based in San Diego, California. And I am an Army veteran and a former nursing home administrator. I don't have any past prior coffee experience prior to starting Mostra Coffee. I would have loved to be a barista champion or a Brewers Cup champion, but my palate's not quite that good. The way I would tell my origin story is in 2013, My wife, who's also my business partner, Beverly, is an opera singer by profession. She went to the Boston Conservatory for music. And then her best friend, Jillian Rodriguez Malone, was an actress in Hollywood. And they came to me in 2013 and said, Sam, we're going to open up a business. And I said, what do you mean you're going to open up a business? You're performers. What do you know about business? What kind of business are you thinking of opening? And they said, we are going to open up a coffee roasting business. And I said, we don't even drink coffee, much less roast coffee. Like, what is this all about? And after they proceeded to tell me their vision for what this company was going to be and going to do, and the kind of difference and impact that it was going to make on the world, I said, I'm in. I quit my job the next day. And we started Mostra Coffee in the garage in the summer of 2013. We brought on Mike Arquinez, who was our fourth partner and our first head roaster. He's a fine dining chef by profession and the closest to knowing a little bit more about specialty coffee than us, but he didn't have any prior experience in roasting coffee. The story is that he nearly burnt my house down roasting in the garage in the summer of 2013. So imagine just a bunch of people that didn't really drink any coffee. Somebody that drank Starbucks had more coffee experience than us, and then all this black smoke coming out of the garage in the summer of 2013 as we were trying to figure out. But fast forward a few years later, we won Micro Roaster or Roast Magazine's 2020 Micro Roaster of the Year. Our platform is specifically championing Philippine specialty coffee and hoping to make a difference in that part of the world for the farmers in the Philippines, where we are connected by culture and by language. I was actually born in the Philippines. And then serendipitously, we started collaborating with craft breweries across the country. And to date, we've had about 1,064 beer collaborations, bottles, cans, drafts across 136 total breweries, cider companies, and meaderies in about 32 states, 7 countries, including Denmark, Korea, Thailand, Greece, France, Sweden. And then in 2022, through the first couple of months, we have 22 beer collaborations either released or already in the works. So we love coffee, we love beer, we love our community. And Mostra stands for Performance Exhibition Show. As for owners and founders that are all performers in their respective industries and respective professions, all we want to do is to be able to inspire performance and the best performance in ourselves and in others. And as we're doing that, be able to do good for our community and for the world.
Lovely. Thank you so much, both of you. Jenny, did you have a few slides you wanted to share with us?
Sure. Yeah. So this is Slingshot Coffee Company. Like I said, we really craft coffees that taste like vacation. So we really thrive on coffees that we brew in our own cold brew facility in Raleigh, North Carolina, that are coffees that we want to drink, but also coffees that tend to be more light, bright, juicy, fruity. And then we also have a line of coffee sodas, so carbonated coffee drinks that we came out with in 2018. The newest is our vintage root beer that we just launched in July of last year. As I mentioned, we really want to build on bringing a specialty coffee shop to life, sort of wherever you happen to be. And we've really built the brand and the business based on integrity and values that just mean something to people. So really the values for our company, we really use these 4 criteria when we are making decisions, when we are putting products out, and when we're working with customers and consumers alike. But championing product integrity and innovation. Innovation is a really big one for me. We never had, and I never had the vision for a coffee company or a brand that would kind of just throw vanilla in something and call it innovation. I really want to push the coffee industry when it comes to a packaged product. I really want to try to encourage consumers to think about coffee in a little bit of a mind-bending kind of way, but in an effort to I think get all of us to be really excited about the things that coffee can do and be. And that's really how we've built Slingshot. Respecting human capital, everything from making sure that the people within our supply chain are being paid fair wages, to our team that makes above living wage for every single person on our team. We actually have moved into a complete salary model for the business this year too. We've taken everybody off of hourly and put everyone on salary. And so that was a big step for our business. Reflecting environmental sustainability, that's just critical, and it's really important to us as a business. We want to make sure that we are respecting the environment, but also we want to really make sure that within that we are honoring fiscal sustainability as well. And we really feel like the two go hand in hand. Fostering consumer and customer engagement. It's really important for me to be present in the business. It's really important to me to listen to our consumers, listen to our customers, and make sure that we are taking in that feedback and we're really thinking about it. I feel like there's no better person to be giving that feedback to than the person who is running everything. So it's really important for me to stay involved and make sure that I'm in it every day. I mentioned that we have a new sister brand. This is Needs and Wants. It's a line of sparkling superfruit teas that we launched about 2 months ago. So very new. But this is actually a 100% cascara-based product. So Slingshot as a brand has had some kind of cascara product on the market since 2013. So we were certainly a first mover, actually in the entire world, to have a kind of packaged cascara product. And this is just an evolution of that passion for me. So our cascara project has always been sort of a passion project and something that I've really wanted to make sure that I'm bringing to light and pushing to the forefront. I've worked really hard to make this a 100% woman-led supply chain for this entire project, which starts with our 5th generation coffee farmer in El Salvador, Aida Bate. She's become a great friend of mine throughout the almost 15 years that I've been in specialty coffee. And none of this would be possible without her. So I'm very proud to have her as a partner. And you can see a little bit more here too. We feature in this product organic dandelion, organic lemon balm, and then upcycled coffee fruit. So it was really important to me to also take some of the things that I had experienced as an entrepreneur and really wanted to put them into a beverage. And as I'm sure a lot of you who are potentially cafe owners can understand, there's a lot of stress that comes with it. There's a lot of kind of imbalance that happens within you personally. And so putting together the formulation for this line, as well as all of the products we do for Slingshot, but this one in particular, was meant to really kind of bring a sense of balance back to my physical being that would also help to kind of bring some balance back to my mental health as well. And so that's really a lot of the impetus for this product. And there's just some contact information if you want to get in touch with me afterwards, but I know that the SCA has that as well. So Maya, I will certainly hand this back to you.
Thank you for sharing a bit about your new product line, certainly, as well as your company as a whole. One thing that I have loved learning about talking to you both this past week or so is how both of your companies are really mission driven. And, Sam, you alluded to that a little bit when you talked about how your company started, because it started as a mission first thing. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how that still drives you today?
So earlier I had said that the origin story started in 2013 when my wife shocked me by announcing that we were going to open up a coffee and a coffee roasting company. But it actually starts quite earlier than that. In 2009, Beverly and Jalen, the 2 co-founders, traveled to the Philippines to build homes for the poor. They were with a charity group, and they were building homes for the poorest of the poor. And they were able to see the country where their parents came from and where I was born. And they saw the beautiful countryside and all the beauty of the Philippines. But then they also saw the families living in poverty. And what really stuck out was the fact that they could have been us, if not for the fact that we won a lottery ticket to come here, our families. And like myself, I was 4 years old when I left the Philippines, and I was able to immigrate to San Diego, California, and grew up in North County, San Diego, of all places. So our children, the kids that we saw, literally could have been, our kids, and nothing separates us from them except for that opportunity. And if they were given the opportunity, then they would be able to, live the life that we would be, living. So that, I think, really stuck with the two co-founders. They came back to the United States and asked the question, like, what can we do, and what can we do now to make a difference? And over the course of the few years, they tossed ideas back and forth in terms of, what kinds of businesses can they build up and create that can connect back to that vision of being able to help, and specifically help the poorest of the poor and the people in the Philippines. And then I think with the research that they were doing about coffee and about specialty coffee and about what grows in the Philippines, you got cacao and coconut and all sorts of products. Coffee actually does grow in the Philippines too. So it was just that aha moment, like a few hundred years ago, coffee, specialty coffee, Arabica was growing in the Philippines, and then it dropped off. What happened to the industry? And if it's still growing, what if we as a Filipino American group of entrepreneurs can create a coffee company that can source coffee from the Philippines, bring it on the world stage, and champion Philippine specialty coffee and the farmers? Then we're making a difference. For me, it comes full circle because it ties back to identity and purpose of why I was able to immigrate and what I've been doing for the last 30 something years of my life. So it was that aha moment for me when they said, we are going to start a coffee company. We are going to start a roasting company. And oh, by the way, we're going to be Micro Roaster of the Year in a few years, because that's the platform that we're going to need to help give us credibility to bring the farmer story to the highest level, to dignify, to empower. And when I heard that, I was like, I'm all in. So I quit my day job. 3 months later, the money ran out. My wife said, you need to go back to work. I said, I don't want to go back to work. I love what we're doing. But I went back to work. And then 6 years later, in the end of 2019, I was able to rejoin the company and my partners in a full-time role. So we are very much driven by the mission of being able to champion Philippine specialty coffee farmers. We're also driven by the vision of what our company and the company name Mostra represents, which is perform, show. Are we able to give the best performance that we can? Can we inspire to give the best performance? And all of us as performers have been on our own respective stage. And we know when we are truly alive, giving the best performance, we're able to inspire others to make a difference and to perform. And if all of us are inspiring to perform at the highest level, and we're able to connect local and global communities all in an effort to do good and to be a positive force in the world, then we're doing something special. So that's what Mostra means to us, and that's the mission that we are continuing to carry 8 years later.
Thank you. And so going off of that, beer has been a great platform for you to reach all over the world. You mentioned that you have beers in Europe, in Asia, and how do you go about developing and working with different breweries to build that flavor profile?
So the beer program is championed by my partner Mike, and Mike is a fine dining chef, a culinary chef, and his vision was to be able to blur the lines between coffee and beer and spirits and basically the food industry. When Jenny talks about innovation and the innovative process, it's very much a part of Mike's core values, and what he's trying to create is to innovate, is to inspire creativity, ultimately in a product that ends up tasting good. Does it taste good in the end? And what he noticed, being a craft beer connoisseur, a craft beer fan, was that these breweries would go out of their way to find the best water, hop selection, their brewing techniques, And then when they came to, coffee beers, more often than not, they were just pulling coffee off of the grocery store shelf. And oftentimes it was just stale coffee. And then they're expecting a world-class product that was just not using the best ingredient. And we all know that, in coffee, there's just so much that can go into sourcing the coffee, what origin, what flavor profile, what roast level, the brewing method, and all of that has impact into the finished product. So his aha moment was, what if we can provide this specialized service, this concierge service to breweries and really partner with them and come from a platform of, we're just not an ingredient that you can pick off the shelf. That's the same kind of intensity, the same kind of effort that you're doing crafting the beer should be applied to coffee. And of course, his understanding of flavor profiles of the coffee itself, and trying to understand what the brewery is going after and what the vision for their finished product is, and then pairing the two together is our approach. It started off almost serendipitously. We happen to be in San Diego. There's 150 craft breweries, so we are in the mecca of craft breweries. So it probably made sense for us. But in the summer of 2014, there was a gentleman by the name of Chris Banker, who is an amateur home brewer, who came into our roasting facility asking for a special roast of coffee. So Mike asked him what kind of beer he's making. He was making a Mexican mocha milk stout. So Mike roasted a pound of coffee, gave it to him for free. And a week later, Chris Banker called us and said that he had won the American Homebrewers national competition with his recipe, with our coffee in his recipe, and that the prize was going to be a one-time limited run of his recipe to be distributed by Stone Brewing Company across the country. And he insisted to Stone Brewing Company that they use us as the coffee provider. And he said, if Stone calls you, then just say yes, you can provide the service. So Stone called us and said, Chris Banker wants you to, or wants us to use your coffee in it because it's part of the award-winning recipe. We need 5,000 pounds of coffee. And we were less than a year old. We had probably only roasted and sold like 200 pounds of coffee. But we said, yes, we can absolutely do it. Then they said, we need it all ground up and delivered to us after you roast it. I think at the time we only had a 1 pound grinder. So that was the opportunity that we had to scale up a little bit about our business. And from there, it's just word of mouth. And the craft beer community is very collaborative. And brewers and owners all talk to each other and all collaborate with each other. So then they introduced us to other breweries. In 2015, we got invited to the Copenhagen Beer Celebration, where we just met more breweries across the world. And that's how the collaborations start.
Thank you. We're getting a lot of questions from the audience, so I'm going to just kind of pick and choose in the order that they've been received here. So this one's for Sam. What's your favorite beer collaboration that you've ever done?
So my absolute favorite was released in 2015 by a brewery called The Brewery in Placentia, Orange County, California. Award-winning brewery that does a lot of experimental beers and whatnot. Just a lot of fans of that brewery. But in 2015, they wanted to release a new beer collaboration series called Share This. And the highlight of the beer collaboration was that they were going to feature one organic ingredient. And the first ingredient that they wanted to highlight was coffee. So the beer was called Share This Coffee. And as I had mentioned, we're trying to champion Philippine specialty coffee. So by 2015, we had been able to go to the Philippines. I went to the farms in Mindanao, and I was able to, find specialty Arabica coffee, bring it back. And we had a limited lot of it. So we decided to pitch putting this coffee in this beer. The brewery accepted it. And in 2015, Share This Coffee, featuring coffee from the island of Mindanao in the Philippines, was featured. It was also tied to charity. So $1 from every bottle sale was donated to the Free Wheelchair Project, which gives wheelchairs to disabled kids in the Philippines and in other countries. And I think all in all, $50,000 was donated to the charity. We were able to have our brand featured on the coffee beer, and then for the first time feature Philippine specialty coffee in a coffee beer. So I think all in all, for all of those reasons, Share This Coffee is my favorite brewery collaboration out of the 1,064 that we've done.
I have a lot of follow-up questions based on that, but we're going to keep moving along to these audience questions. This answer to this may have been posted in the chat already, but in case it wasn't, somebody asked you, Jenny, do you import dried cascara or cascara extract or concentrate?
So we actually import dried cascara, which we have done since we started making a cascara product in 2013. And we actually do the brewing extraction ourselves in our facility. A few years ago, I actually went to El Salvador and worked with Aida on specific drying experiments. So we have a very specific single farm, single origin, specifically dried cascara that's for us. For all of our purposes.
Lovely. And if either of you are willing to share, somebody asks, what agencies did you partner with for your branding? They really love both of your branding.
We actually didn't use necessarily an agency. We used some friends of ours who are just hyper talented designers, the Boyettes, and we are so happy with the beautiful work that they have done. They do some small graphic design pieces under the name Good South.
And for most, all the branding is done in-house. When we started, with 4 founders and owners that are actively involved, and all coming from different backgrounds, it's like we broke every single business rule of just having multiple owners. And, I'm married to one of the owners and, the best friend and whatnot. But I think all of our different backgrounds and what makes us different is really our competitive advantage. It's our diversity that when you put it together allows us to be competitive. Jalen's background is Hollywood, and so she spent over a decade honing her eyes and her senses in all things branding and marketing. So functionally, when we started the company, that was her expertise, her area of expertise, and she drove the look and the marketing and the branding for the company. And over the course of the last 8 years, we've just been able to bring in in-house just some amazing creatives, photographers, designers. They all started off as baristas. Everybody starts off on the line for us, and then as we're looking at answering the question of sustainability and how can we actually make meaningful careers, if somebody that's starting off as a barista is wanting to transition into something else that they're passionate about, how can we create those types of meaningful opportunities for them? So as we've grown as a company, we've brought everything in-house, and we've tried to tap into the talents of our staff that have joined us.
And Sam, another question for you. Have you ever used Philippine Robusta?
So not yet, not in the coffee beer. We are experimenting with Robusta and just trying to get flavor profiles dialed in and like the right project. I think overall, the more coffee that we can buy and that anybody can buy from the Philippines, whether it's Arabica or Robusta, is going to benefit the country. Because what they need is just more production and just more buyers of their coffee. When it goes back to selecting the right project to highlight the coffee and then the coffee beer, it just has to make sense. So what project, how's it tasting, how's it cupping, I think are still elements that we are very much considerate of. But I think one of these days we will be featuring Robusta coffee in a project.
Thank you. And so Jenny, I'll pass to you next. What were some major motivations for getting into diversification of your lineup, and how long until you saw a measurable return on that effort?
Well, I always really had a fairly large vision for how I wanted to kind of create innovation along the way for Slingshot. Knowing that I wanted to start with kind of these sort of mainstay products that were going to be really kind of grounded in sort of the cold brew category. But then I wanted to really kind of build on that. And like I was saying, kind of early on in the discussion, it's really important for me that we were building on innovation, that we were really thinking ahead about what coffee really can be and all of the beautiful ways that you can use coffee. So coffee sodas for me was just something we had started experimenting with them in maybe 2014 we had a small coffee bar that was kind of associated with our brewery. And they were really popular. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted to approach coffee soda for, kind of a commercial type launch, it was really all about making innovation that was approachable. So the flavors that you see, a citrus vanilla cream soda, black cherry cola, and now a vintage root beer, those were all flavors that when a consumer was going to be going into a grocery store and seeing this product, they weren't kind of scratching their head at the entirety of the concept. They were thinking, okay, I know what coffee tastes like. I know what cream soda tastes like. I can imagine in my head what these two things might taste like together. And so for us, it was really about how can we kind of take people sort of right to the edge without them necessarily falling off the cliff. And so once they have it, it's kind of it's really an aha type moment. And like I had said before, I do all of the formulation for all of our products, including our coffee sodas. And so for me, along the way, palette development has also been just kind of something that I think is really, really critical to what we do. And so it's really allowed me, because I've really honed my palette over the years and would consider myself a palette expert. It's really helped us to build beverages that are hyper balanced, that are really approachable, that are really delicious, and are still really grounded in specialty coffee. So those coffee sodas are our cold brew or specific coffees that we actually choose for each one. Not all of them have the same coffee because that doesn't make sense necessarily when you're building a product. And we've built on the innovation that way.
Thank you. Sam, the next question is for you. It asks, how do you seek out the beer collaborations? Because your start was very serendipitous. It was very lovely. It's a great story, but it's not going to happen to everyone, right? So if you had to give advice to somebody who is a roaster who's looking to get into the beer collab world, what advice would you give them?
So I think a couple thoughts. When we first started that summer, where it led to the incident of us nearly burning our house down, it was literally, we were roasting coffee over high ABV beers that were some of Mike's, favorite, beers from these breweries. And it literally was the thought of, here's my top 10, favorite breweries, or my top 5. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do a beer collaboration or a coffee beer collaboration with them? And over the course of the years, we just kind of checked the box. But that was the challenge, and that was the inspiration, was, wouldn't it be cool if we can just do something really rad? And it seems so far-fetched. One brewery's in Vermont, or one brewery's in Texas, or one brewery's in Decorah, Iowa. But you got to start with kind of like a bold idea of just, what if it would be cool to do something like that, and what if it could actually happen, and then work backwards from there. The thing about coffee and coffee beers is that local breweries, there's probably a brewery in your local area, wherever you are as a coffee roaster, and the local brewery is supposed to use a local coffee roaster, right? So when you're talking about bringing communities together, it makes sense that we're supposed to be using local, and we're supposed to be partnering. So don't be afraid to go out of your immediate footprints of coffee and coffee retail, but look to your neighbors, look to the breweries, look to the restaurants, look to all of the other organizations that probably have more in common with each other than differences. And when you start identifying commonality, when you start identifying that your core audience or your customers are also customers of theirs, and they would absolutely love to see these collaborations together, the recipe is already there. You just have to go out out of your comfort zone, make a phone call or reach out to your favorite local brewery and say, hey, let's make something happen. And then through that process, great things, happen when you make a phone call and when you reach out.
Just to kind of add to that, we have a very large collaboration partnership. We have a branded Slingshot ice cream with Jenny's ice cream. And when I started Slingshot, I actually sent product and a letter to Jenny Britton and said, it's my dream to be able to work with you one day. And so that actually happened in 2018 when we came out with this. It's a cold brew with coconut cream, so it's part of their dairy-free lineup. But it's probably one of my proudest moments. But similarly to what Sam said, it's really just kind of about asking. You can't necessarily expect to get a yes every time, or in my case, it took 6 years to get a yes. But there is a lot of beauty in collaboration, and you never know, what one collaboration can kind of lead to. And that's kind of what Sam is also, a demonstration of, that it can be something that could really be a really fun piece of your business, as well as being, a really nice revenue driver for your business as well, especially in Sam's case.
Yeah, one thing I love about both of you is you both set a goal and go after it. Sam Mostra really said at the beginning, we're going to win Micro Roaster of the Year. That was one of your goals very early on, because you're right near another roaster who had won that award in 2018.
So in 2012, Bird Rock
Okay.
Coffee Roasters won the award, and they're in our backyard, and that's just a great company. We actually have some former Bird Rock coffee alumni that are part of our company. So they make great coffee, great company, and they won 2012 Roaster of the Year. And when we started the company in 2013 and we were getting introduced to the world of coffee and specialty coffee, we turned to Bird Rock and to their award, and we said, what's that? And as we found out about the award, the criteria of the award, and all of the components and tenets, we said, look, if we can model our company after these categories, then we are not only moving our mission forward, but being able to fill out the application at the same time. So it took us about 5 years, or so, and we just knew that as we're championing beans from the Philippines, that just any additional recognition, award, is all upside, for us.
Yeah, and Jenny, people could say the same about you with your Brewers Cup championships. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that has tied into Slingshot?
Yeah, I mean, I've never shied away from this, but I am a highly competitive person. I just think it's fun. I think it's fun to compete with myself. I think it's fun to compete with others. It can certainly make you want to rip your hair out at times. But so really, Brewers Cup for me was kind of like part curiosity, part just like my competitive nature sort of coming to the surface. I had actually coached my husband, who is actually a 5-time Brewers Cup champ. I coached him before I competed. And I really just kind of got caught, I think, the bug from there too. But I think competitions are really great. I think there's always a lot of work to do in competitions. It's tough to figure it out. But I think one of the things that competitions do is really just push you to just think more critically about, kind of what you've chosen to do. Think more critically about how you're tasting something, why you're tasting something, and just the whole 9 yards. And so to me, it was such a professional development piece, but it was also something that was just like wildly fun for me on a personal level. So I'll get back out there and compete again. I'd love to be World Brewers Cup champ someday. So when I'm not busy kind of making, I guess, building my beverage empire that I'll get back to.
That's awesome. Well, you both definitely have a lot of drive out there, and it's really inspiring.
Thank you,
I'm going to go back to audience questions for a moment. So, what advice would you have for coffee roasters looking to diversify their lineup in other coffee-related products?
So I'll start with that if that's okay, Jenny.
Yeah.
I think going back to that spirit of innovation, I think if you're looking at diversifying your lineup, you've got to cultivate a spirit of experimentation and not being afraid to fail. Like you've got to try new things, and you've got to be able to understand that failure is part of the process of being able to come up with diverse, products, and that you're not going to know if something is going to be successful if you're not trying and continuing to get feedback and continuing to revise and continuing to dial it in based off of that feedback. So experimentation and failure is part of the process of innovation and being able to ultimately come up with a line that will be successful or will contribute to your bottom line. For us, we always also talk about taste, and does it taste good at the end? And for me, as I think a layman with a palate that's not as refined as some of my partners, I'm like the layman's test of, is this something that I would drink, and ultimately does it taste good? And we're always trying to answer that question: does this taste good? Is this something that the customer is going to enjoy? But not being afraid to experiment and not being afraid to fail is part of the answer to trying to diversify your lineup.
Those are good points, Sam. I think one of the things that I think that is, let's see, it just can be really difficult to kind of diversify your line when you're talking about commercialization. So when you are a cafe, you're going to have the business acumen related to how to run a retail establishment. The business acumen, the capital that's necessary to kind of move into a CPG line from a cafe is 100% different. So the business models are completely different. And it's incredibly capital intensive, especially within the beverage world. So, I think one of the biggest things is that unless you are very, 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 very well capitalized, it makes a lot of sense to really build on the things that you know and are good at. And if you're really deep into retail and you're really good at retail and you can scale your retail operations, that to me is where you should be putting your focus, and not necessarily trying to kind of jump the shark a little bit.
Thank you. So another person in our chat here is curious, what are your thoughts on using your current branding on a new product line? Jenny, I think this is a great question for you because you just launched Needs and Wants, and you did go a little off of the core Slingshot brand for that.
Yeah.
What informed that decision?
Well, it's a really great name. No, so for us, it was, there was a couple of kind of things at play here. So, and I can probably demonstrate this a little bit, but one of the things you can see is it says by Slingshot Coffee Company on it. So we really wanted to kind of lean on the brand recognition we had, and the loyalty that we had, and the integrity that we had as Slingshot, to be able to kind of bring this company into our fold as a sister brand. But it wasn't necessarily, we're looking at two different products, really. And so you have a coffee product and a tea product. And so while they can be completely congruous in some instances, in the world that we are in, it made more sense for us to kind of have a thread as opposed to a rope that kind of tied the two things together. And so it was a way for us to really look at how we were becoming a more holistic beverage company as opposed to just playing in coffee, but knowing that because this is a coffee fruit based product, there was still relativity there.
Thank you. And we have another
Maya,
question.
can I add
go ahead,
to that?
Sam. Absolutely.
So I'll just flip my hat around. So with Mike being a fine dining chef, food has always been a part of our company and our offerings. And last year to this year, we've launched our basically food component, and it's tied to Mostra, but it's its own separate company. It provides in-house pastries and whatnot to Mostra, but it can also open up its own restaurants and its own retail establishments, wholesale lines of business. But we call our food company Artsum, which is literally Mostra backwards. So it's tied to Mostra, but it's separate. It's the full circle of our vision, where if Mostra is the inspiration and it's inspiring performance via coffee currently, then food is the full self-expression of Mostra, and that's why it's called Artsum, or Artsum by Mostra is how we've branded a different product line, because it's similar but it's completely different and can have completely different audience as well. So Mostra, and then Artsum by Mostra is the full self-expression of Mostra, and you can see it on my hat. I'm wearing Artsum.
I love that. I also love both of everything you all name. So lovely. I love hearing the stories. So we have just a little bit of time left, so we're going to go on to some final questions. Jenny, having all staff members on salary sounds like a great idea. How's that working out so far?
Great. I really just feel like when somebody is on salary, I think it just gives them a different sense of value. And I think it puts a lot less stress on them. I think it puts a lot less stress on your mental health to not think about, if I take this time off and I'm hourly, am I going to get paid, et cetera. I mean, we were always extremely generous with having all hourly employees, all employees, actually, whether you were hourly or salary. You never had to use any of your vacation time for personal things that came up. So we had a set amount of paid personal days that you could take for things that happen in life. And it shouldn't be any different for hourly employees, because things happen in life to everybody, whether you're hourly or whether you're salary. But for me, it was just really important that we weren't necessarily asking employees to be punching a time clock, and for them to, be thinking down to the minute, how am I going to get paid for this? I mean, it was so much more about, this is a team. We have to work together as a team because we have these goals that we have to accomplish. And if team member A is putting in 100% and team member B is putting in 80%, that's going to be apparent no matter what. But if team member B is putting in 80% because they're an hourly employee and they've got some other things that they're kind of thinking about, I mean, there's just any number of things. And I'm sure that anybody here who is kind of dealing with salary versus hourly employees, can absolutely relate to this. But for us, it was a way to just basically say, no one is any less valued in this organization than anyone else. We all have to do the job that we've been hired to do to the best of our ability if we're going to make this work. Because if we make it work for us, we're all going to benefit as well. So as the company grows, we can pay you more. I mean, just, there's so many great things that can happen. And so this was really just, to me, a first step that was a fairly, it wasn't necessarily easy, but it was kind of an easy decision.
Thank you. So one final question before we wrap, and then I'm also just going to ask you if you have any advice that you'd like to give to aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience. So think about that. The final audience question is, do either of you have any thoughts or experience with CBD coffee?
I mean, I have thoughts on everything. Sam, do you want to go?
We don't have any experience with CBD coffee. It came up a few times, some collaborative opportunities, and just wasn't the right time or the right fit for us at the time. And as we talk about, we're a very experimental company. We have to look closely at our narrative and at our values and our mission, and does it all align, and what's the bigger purpose and whatnot. So we just haven't found an opportunity yet to experiment or to try it all out. Not to say that we couldn't in the future, but we just don't have any experience with it as of yet.
I think that collaborations between industries are really cool. I think that we can always learn from other industries. We don't necessarily have to only be learning from coffee, or only be learning from fashion, or only be learning from tech, whatever industry you happen to be in. I think there's a lot of really interesting things that can come out of collaborations, both in a physical product, but also just kind of what it takes to sort of be in those industries. I've always really been a proponent of the concept that we are responsible for doing the things that we are really good at, and we need to be going a mile deep with the things we're really good at, and not necessarily going a mile wide with things that we don't necessarily have a lot of experience with. I think when it comes to CBD, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done on kind of, how much CBD is effective. What's the dosage that makes the most sense? So I think there's just still so much discussion about sort of a standard with CBD, that I think just needs to continue to happen, and those conversations need to continue to foster, so that there's a little bit more of a sense of not regulation. I don't know the word I'm looking for right now, but just I think sort of just some base level foundations of this is sort of how CBD needs to be administered, or this is the dosage that makes the most sense. And we are not the people who are going to be able to do that. It's people who are experts in CBD. And so I think that kind of once that is figured out, there is a lot more opportunity, I think, for collaborations sort of in the coffee world, where people are really getting what they want to be getting and need to be getting out of both things, the CBD and the coffee itself.
All right. And any final advice for the audience?
I'll start. Just thank you all for the opportunity and for listening in. If I was to offer one, thought or final, comment, it's taken from an ancient African proverb. It says, "If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together." And I think most, represents that sentiment. I have there's four, partners and business partners that have gone through this journey together, and along with, our staff, our community, local and global. Our craft beer, collaboration, partners. There's more to all of us that bind and unite us than that separate us. So, look for the commonalities. We have a communal table in our coffee shop, and our final mission statement is "We are one." So there's just more that binds us all together, in spite of our diversity, than that puts us apart. And together, going through this journey, we'll be that much more successful.
I would say that my biggest piece of advice is really something that I've always given from day one, and that is passion will help you sleep at night, but grit is what will get you out of bed in the morning. And if you're going to take the route of being a business owner, being a kind of self-proclaimed entrepreneur, it's really important that you are understanding and are ready to put 2 feet on the ground in the morning, because there's going to be a lot more hardship than there is going to be a lot more celebration. But at the same time, you kind of can't get too high and you can't get too low. And so it's a really fine line to walk. And but if you kind of know that and kind of understand that, then I think that you're going to be setting yourselves up for success. So I certainly feel like I've been given such an opportunity. I mean, I grew up on a 300-acre fruit and vegetable farm. I'm a farmer's daughter. I kind of was given those sorts of experiences growing up of like, you got to stick with it. And so I'm really grateful for that. But just, I believe that everybody has the capability to have that drive. It's really just kind of whether or not you can find it within yourself.
Thank you both so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you and getting to hear your stories. I'm going to pass it off to Kim Elena to wrap up this day of the Coffee Retail Summit.
Thanks, Maya. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
It's really lovely. I was listening to those quotes of Sam's and Jenny's and thinking about quotes that inspired me. And honestly, all I can think of right now are product slogans, like when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I think that's probably due to it being toward the end of the day and my brain being full from learning some interesting stuff and hearing some perspectives that challenge some of the ways that I have seen this retail market and this coffee industry evolution. So a lot of food for thought, and I'm very grateful to everyone. And that's really what I'm here to do at the end of this day, the second day of Retail Summit, is just to give some thanks and do the official closing. So as I said, here we are. It's the end of the second day of the 2022 Coffee Retail Summit. We'll be back here for day 3 on Friday at 10 a.m. Korea Standard Time, which is 5 p.m. on Thursday Pacific Standard Time. So we launched today's in Pacific Standard Time, announced it. So for those of you who are thinking in those terms, our third day begins tomorrow around 5 p.m. It will be in Korean, of course, as I said earlier. So if you are not a Korean speaker, then wait and catch the subtitled videos after the event has concluded here on the retail.sca.coffee website. So I'd like to thank the panelists, Alina, Jasmine, Ron, Sam Spellman, Damien, Sam Magdanong, and Jenny, as well as the hosts, Mansi, Elizabeth, and Maya. Thank you all so much for the time that they all put into making today's discussions interesting and relevant to this audience. I'd also like to thank all of my colleagues who work behind the scenes to make an event like this possible, and to the sponsors who enable us to deliver all this free of charge. That's Astoria, Pacific Foods, or Pacific Barista Series, rather, BWT and More, Simonelli Group, Brewista, Chemex, and Baratza. And finally, to thank you to all of you for your attention today, for posting good questions in the chat. The engagement was really fun for me to be a part of, both as a speaker and as a fellow audience member with you all. And we hope to see you at an event soon, whether that's an online event or at an in-person event of some kind coming up in the world. Before you go, please take a moment to fill out our post-event survey before you move on to your next activity. We will use that information to guide future Coffee Retail Summit decisions around, what stories we want to tell and who we want to hear from here, as well as, the population of the resource library, which I hope you'll see as sort of an ongoing place to refer to for data and insights and inspiration. So that's it for me. Thank you again, and hope to see some of you back here on Friday at 10 a.m. Korea Standard Time.